What's up, Greater Reset?
Welcome.
Make some noise in Texas. We know we got our Texas fam out there. Where's John?
Hello, hello, hello.
What up, John?
There's John.
John, can you guys hear us still okay? We hear you just fine.
Check 1, 2.
We hear you just fine. Can you hear us?
Hey guys, give me 1 sec.
All right.
Can you guys hear me in
We can hear
Mexico?
We can hear you, brother. We can see you too.
There we go. Okay, we can hear you. Let's crank up their volume real quick.
Hey, let's get some the Morelia audience to make some noise for the folks in Texas and around the world. Let's get hyped.
All right.
Hey, we got people tuned in from all around the world. We got hundreds of people in Texas, hundreds here in Morelia, Mexico. We're so excited to be here with you guys. John, how y'all doing over there?
We're doing good. What you want to show them the audience, Miss Rebecca C?
Yeah,
we got a nice, beautiful crowd of freedom lovers here in Bastrop, Texas. So happy to be here for you. The Greater Reset. Go now. Make some noise, everybody.
Yeah, we're going to get our audience cam set up.
All right, ladies and gents. All right, you're going to lead us with a prayer to kind of set the intention, yeah?
Yep, absolutely. So guys, we are a few minutes behind, but flowing perfectly. But we want to let you guys know, for those who are new here, anybody new here, first time coming to the Greater Reset? Yes, amazing. We started this event 2 years ago in the middle of COVID, as you guys know, and we're going to tell you more about it throughout the day, but this is a direct response to the World Economic Forum. I don't know if you guys know right now, but Klaus and his buddies are meeting in the mountains of Davos right now at the same time as we are meeting. And
we got bugs for lunch today, Derek.
that's why we're here today, to try to counter them. We've been doing this as our 4th event, and before we get things started, we've got so many speakers today. We've got we're going to be doing a lot of things we'll tell you about throughout the day, but we want to start to really get things set right for the people watching at home, for everybody in Texas, and everybody here, with a little bit of a prayer / intention setting. We recognize that our movements here, there's a lot of different people. We have Christians, we've got atheists, we've got spiritual folks, we've got people who don't know what they believe yet, and all of that is fine. We want to make sure that everybody knows that you're all welcome here. But if you would join us for just a moment or two, however you feel comfortable, close your eyes, whatever you want to do. We're just going to say a few words to make sure that we set the intention for the next 5 days, and also to send some love, whether you like it or not, to Davos, Switzerland. Because whether you want to recognize it or not, Klaus Schwab is somebody's grandpa, and I'm sure they think he's the nicest guy in the world. And they are humans, as far as we know, just like us. So we need to try to reach them. So if we could all just take a moment of silence, and Miriam and I are going to share a few words. Creator, let me say before I go further, insert whatever favorite word here. I'm going to be pretty broad because I know we have a wide range of beliefs. Creator, Great Spirit, Great Mystery, Universe, God. We're all coming to you from around the world right now, your sons, your daughters, your children. We're here to come in a good way, with a good heart, to create a better world for the coming generations. That's what this is all about. It's not about those of us here. It's about those who are not born yet, those who are just being born. We want to create a world where they have a choice: freedom, good food, healthy lives, clean air. We want to create that world for them. We want to keep that world alive for them. We know there are others who have other intentions, and we want to come together collectively, all the people tuned in, all the people here from more than a dozen countries in Texas and Mexico, together from our hearts, our minds, and our bodies, collectively to send this prayer, this energy out into the world. Over the next 5 days, you're going to hear lots of information. You're going to have so much fun. We want you to take this and put it in your hearts, carry it with you, take it home with you. This only works if we all put everything we have into this. And we come to you, Creator, asking for your guidance, for your strength. We humble ourselves, whatever your beliefs are. We know that there's a world beyond the 5 senses, and we need all the strength we can get.
We also ask the land here in Morelia and all around the world to support us. Mother Earth, be with us, guide us, protect us. To our ancestors, all of our ancestors all around the world, all of our connections, all of our relatives, and also to the future generations. We are here, we are showing up, we are trying. Help us, support us to do our very best in each and every step that we take, to mend our hearts with our minds and all of our gifts together so that we can make freedom a reality of tomorrow, our future, and for the future generations. And thriving, thriving, not just, we're thriving, guys. We want to thrive here right now and for tomorrow and forever. And that can be our reality. So thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here with us.
As we close, just again, remember these intentions we're setting right now. For those of you hearing this at home in Texas and Mexico over the next 5 busy days and when you go home, remember our intentions we're setting now. This is the beginning of 2023. They have an agenda called 2030. We have 7 to 8 years to build our own world. Mm-hmm. And just think of all the beautiful things we're going to do from the rest of this year, from this point on. Please take these moments, keep them in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Amen. All right. I want to share with you guys too, when it comes to the event, do what you can to find those actionable nuggets that apply to your lives. Maybe some folks are more advanced in this area. Maybe the guys already got the garden. Maybe you're all private on the tech, but find areas where there's gaps and take strategies, tips, and tactics that these speakers are going to share with you, because this is all about action. It's about changing your lives. And collectively, when we change our lives, we can co-create a better future.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to tell you more about the philosophy where the people behind this event are in throughout the day. So I hope you'll stay tuned. But to be respectful to the schedule and everybody's time, we're going to go ahead and welcome our first speaker. I hope you give him a big round of applause in Texas and Mexico and give him your full attention. Please welcome Kurt Robinson.
Thanks, Derek. With great respect, with great love, I welcome you all with all my heart. Thanks. It might be a long day, and it's important to be aware of our physiology, because in the sacred yoga tradition, we say that we master a posture after sitting in it for 3 hours without moving. And today we might be sitting for a while. It's important to be aware of our bodies, because our bodies give us our connection with our mind, our emotions, and our soul. And we can be aware of our body, perhaps not using the backrest on the seat so much, elongating the spine so we can allow the energy to flow through our bodies, and opening up the chest, pushing the shoulders back so that flow of air can move smoothly throughout our bodies, enabling us to accept the gifts that are presented before us. Also opening our vision, our peripheral vision, noticing those things that are around us, brings us into this state of receptivity, so we can be aware of the information, but more than that, the experiences that we might have today and across the following days. Having that energy flow through our bodies, that sacred breath that gives us life, we might also start to think about sending love, like Derek was talking about. And at any moment in these few days and during the course of our lives, we can summon and conjure the loving energy, thinking about the touch of a loved one, the texture of their fingerprints against our palm, or the gaze of a dear friend whom we haven't seen for a long time. When we look in our eyes, we see ourselves reflected, and we know that we are recognized. Feeling those feelings, as Derek said, we might also send them to those people who we suspect might not be worthy of love, because there are those people in this world. Psychologist Erich Fromm wrote these words: "Love actualizes." He gave the analogy of a baby coming into this world. From a certain perspective, a baby is not worthy of love. It comes out a bundle of tears and cries, making so many demands. But in the mother's eyes, she sees something greater, some potential that is not yet realized. And through her tender caresses, through her love, her affection, physically and spiritually, that baby begins to become its potential. So if we think about those people in Davos, we can send them something special. There are those people who perhaps have been deprived of certain things in their life. Perhaps they've forgotten what we might remember deep inside of ourselves. There are those of us here who had to struggle to remember those lessons that are now so dear to us. In our rough experiences throughout our lives, we managed to distill, transmute those experiences into something precious for us. For those who don't remember, we will remind them through our care, through our affection, just as a mother does to her child. I came to the first Greater Reset, and I've been at every one so far, and they're wonderful events. I remember we were back here in Morelia after going to Suatenejo Guerrero. It was great. And I met a unique fellow by the name of Stephen Lopez of Arizona. And I remember we were driving around here in Morelia after the conference, and he said to me, what an amazing experience it had been to meet so many people who were so fascinating, who shared so much in common, so many values, so willing to explore ideas, willing to explore the world of ideas, and use our creativity and discernment to come up with what might be a new world. And I said to him, well, I've been to so many of these events, similar events now, maybe I got used to it. And Stephen turned to me and said, I hope I never get used to it. Stephen taught me an important lesson about appreciation, about gratitude. And if this is your first time at one of these events, you probably have that feeling within you, this natural excitement that comes to you. And you can note it well, because like I said, these feelings can be conjured at any moment of our lives. We know on a deeper level that this is reality. And if we have been to many of these events, we can remind ourselves that we can conjure those moments again. We can bring the magic within our hearts, our solar plexuses, our bellies, bring it to life once again to make these things new. Many years ago, I was in the theater, in the amateur theater. It was one of the first things I ever did with respect to personal development. I wanted to become more confident, and it worked. It's very interesting because so many things happen in the theater, so much drama that happens on the stage, and so much drama that happens backstage. And now, looking back, I think what a wonderful blessing it was to have all those experiences. In the moment, we might think that things are so severe, so drastic. With hindsight, we soon see over the course of years, or weeks, or minutes, that these things had to happen, that these things were perfect. In the theater, when there's the curtain call, the people come out, the cast comes out, and they all give a bow, at first individually, and then as a team, holding hands. So many things happen on stage. Villains and heroes, murders, and other things. Backstage, everybody is friends. At the end of the game, all of the pieces go into the same box. After the curtain call, during the curtain call, they give a bow and then they do this action. If you've never been in the theater, it might not be obvious what this means. What it means is the cast is giving an opportunity to applaud the people who are working backstage. Like here in Morelia, we have Ramiro working very hard to make sure everything goes well.
Thank you, amigo. Appreciate you, Kurt.
Thanks, Ramiro. And likewise in Texas, the team there, I guess her name is Rebecca, leading the team there. And these wonderful people make these things happen. If they do their job well, we might not even ever know that they were there because they're so diligent and so precise. So many problems arise, and Ramiro has told me about a few of them. And these things are resolved, and we never even hear about them. So it is as well with a lot of processes in the world. Sometimes we notice these things when they go wrong. This enables us to reach a greater level of consciousness. My friend Chris Guida likes to, he told me a lot about going to the gym, and he said, well, you go to the gym and you train, and then eventually maybe you injure yourself, and that is the opportunity to deepen your knowledge because you're understanding your body at a deeper level. We can, however, be more conscious, observing ourselves, observing the world around us, begin to be grateful for those things which we might not have ever noticed. Those things that are going on all the time that are in our favor. It's wonderful to think about our friendships, and our friendships are like this because many times they go well, and we support our friends, and our friends support us, and occasionally they do break down. By some miracle, we manage to repair our friendships. The Buddha says, when the wise are given the choice between a small pleasure and a great happiness, the wise will consistently choose the prospect of a great happiness. Glad the Buddha's words can get an applause. So that's good to hear. When we do repair our friendships, we set aside that small pleasure of righteous indignation, set aside the small pleasure of being right, and that enables us the great happiness of friendship. These things we can note in our lives, these things that are going on so frequently that are in our favor. It's similar with our parents. Some of you know I was deported from Mexico a few years ago for overstaying my welcome and sent back to Australia. Fortunately for me, I didn't even have to hesitate. I knew my parents would be there to support me, that I could stay at their place. And when it was time to depart, my father drove me to the train station, and I thanked him dearly for receiving me into his home. I said, not everybody in this world has a home to go to, which is true. Even if our parents have not given us much, they still have given us the gift of life, made that sacrifice with their time and energy, with their own bodies, bring us into this world. It's good to be here. Similarly, we might look back through our lives and think about the great teachers that we've had. When I was teaching English, my students would often refer to me by the title teacher, and I used to hate it. I thought this is dehumanizing because you're referring to me by a role instead of by my name. And I asked them to call me by my name. Later, I learned how great the respect was that they were offering me. In China, they call the teacher the bestower of knowledge. And they were showing me this great gift because they know in their culture that if you listen carefully to a great teacher, it can change the course of your life. These things we hold dear in our hearts. Every morning, most mornings, I wake up and I practice meditation. I practice a certain meditation, which is identification with the Guru, going through my body and labeling each part of my body as if it were part of the body of my Guru, Baba Muktananda. Just as the teacher is the bestower of knowledge, the Guru, literally it means he who removes darkness. And by practicing devotion, we can remove the darkness, the illusions that we have. The world is separate. In our hubris, sometimes we might think we know what is good or bad in this world. Everything happens according to the will of God. There is a story from Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He tells a story of a humble merchant in India. And when he's doing his accounts, he would calculate it in this way. He would say, the price is 5 rupees and the cost is 4 rupees. By the will of God, profit is 1 rupee. What happened one day, this man is quite humble means, but he's a hard worker and he's quite physically strong. It happened one night that a bunch of robbers came to his house to steal from him. And they said, well, we can see you don't have much, but you are fit. So you will come with us to be our accomplice or to be our workhorse for this night, taking things from all of the other villages. And he went with them willingly, joyfully, and they commanded him to pick up the belongings of the other people and take them with him. Finally, the police came and saw these robbers, and they stopped the men. The robbers ran away, and this humble merchant was standing there with all of the stolen goods. They arrested him, and the next morning they took him to the court. And all of the people in the village were puzzled at this. They wondered how such an honest man could be taken and arrested. And before the court, the judge asked the man, well, what is What is it? Please tell me in your own words what happened. And he said, by the will of God, I was sleeping in my house. By the will of God, these robbers knocked on my door, broke the door down. By the will of God, they got me out of bed. By the will of God, they commanded me to walk the streets. By the will of God, these men robbed many houses. By the will of God, I carried the stolen goods for them. And by the will of God, the police arrived. By the will of God, they arrested me. Delivered this speech to prove his innocence in this way. And the judge said, very well, I could see that you are innocent, and he let him go. It's very interesting. My thoughts in this story, the man was robbed, the man was taken and forced to rob. We gave him an opportunity to show his great faith to all the other villagers, to know what it is to truly believe that everything happens by the will of God, good and bad. Even at this event, the name of it, inspired in a peculiar way by those people who we might hate or we might love, for whatever part they play in this world. This is our world. Jesus Christ said, look at the rain. It falls on the land of the righteous man, just as it does on the land of the wicked man. Look at how the sun shines on the crops of the righteous man, just as it does on the wicked man. And then he issues this simple command, which I'm sure you'll find very easy to implement in your life. Jesus Christ says, therefore, be perfect. So that's all we have to do, guys. That's all. But it's true. My friend is a Buddhist monk. His name is Jeremy, and he told me the other day in the Lord's Prayer, they say this: "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And he said the difference is, on earth we struggle to do God's will. We can't avoid it. There's things in our life that will guide us in a certain way. The things in the universe, the powers of the universe are so powerful that they will push us. They will guide us to the right decision. But we struggle, and for that we suffer. The difference is, in heaven, the will of God is done joyfully, with pleasure. Just as they say here in Latin America, you say thank you, and they say with pleasure, con gusto, con mucho gusto, con muito placer, with pleasure and with gusto, because they know how valuable it is to serve other people. And we can have this in our lives when we are called to serve. We can do it with that pleasure. Okay, thanks, Ramiro. Let's see. I wonder what else I have to say. The bad things in our lives that happen to us are actually blessings. That's the important message. I was reading, I like to read the Bhagavad Gita, and I always found it, before I read this book, I heard of its reputation, and the story is where Arjuna is heading into battle, to do battle with his own family. And he doesn't want to do it. And Lord Krishna approaches him. Lord Krishna is his charioteer, and he starts to give him advice as he's going into this battle. And I thought this is very unusual before reading the book, because I thought actually maybe this book is a kind of propaganda. It's created by some warlike emperor of ancient India, trying to convince people that war is holy. Actually, having read the book, it is my opinion that this book is integral, that this book has so much integrity, there is no way it could be an act of propaganda. That the reason Arjuna is heading into war is because war is one of the most atrocious things that can happen. But it must happen in this case, and that makes it holy, and that makes it perfect. Acknowledging this in our lives, acknowledging the perfection that already exists in our lives, interpreting it to extract the divine lessons, that is what leads us to live a good life. And yeah, that's the message, guys. I'd like to get into some plugs quickly. My podcast, I've got 480 episodes of my podcast. It's called A Beautiful Thought. And it's all online, it's all free. In many ways, it's my life's work. And everything that I've learned in my life to figure out how to be happy and joyful and enjoy every precious moment of this life that we have on earth, it's all there, laid out, asking people like Derek and Ramiro about the lessons from their life, like about Derek's trip to prison and how he managed to turn that into a force for good for his life, how he managed to become a man of his word, and much more than that. I'd also mention that we're doing some retreats out on Rancho Cicada where I live. We do some meditation retreats, probably about 3 a year, and the next one is probably coming up in March. If you come up to me later, you can get my details or write your details down so we can talk to you about that. Other than that, thanks for coming. Oh, there's one important thing. I've still got 2 minutes, right? Very important thing. So if you travel around Mexico, you can go to all kinds of wonderful places, and you'll see, like, even in the cities here, there are trees, many green zones in Guadalajara and Morelia, and all in the cities. Also, you can go to San Luis Potosí, go out into the desert, and you will see the stars so bright. You've never seen them like that before. You might even see some very unusual lights like I did out there. So many things. I invite you, when you see that, to remember these words, the words of Max Ehrmann from his Desiderata. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Thank you.
All right, let's give Kurt a round of applause. Thanks so much, brother. All right, for those of you tuning in live, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. We'll be back in a second.
Looking for a web host that supports your right to free speech? Innoscale is a cloud service provider that can run your next website, e-commerce site, whatever you want to publish on the internet. They're a self-funded company without outside influence and still provide a cutting-edge service with over 15 years of experience. They can handle all the technical stuff, letting you focus on what's most important to your organization or business. With automatic backups and seamless scaling, your sites will stay up all day, every day. If you're a software engineer, business person, or technologist looking to migrate your servers to a host that respects you, connect with Innoscale today. Check out their website and get more info at innoscale.net.
Let's get the lights on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. TGR for co-creation. Yeah, I just want to take a second to thank some people that we couldn't do this without, some people that we couldn't be co-creating about. And Innoscale is one of those companies. Some of you may not know this, but Innoscale is, the people there have been supporting us since day one with the Freedom Cell Network and also helping support the stream for the Greater Reset. We truly couldn't be reaching hundreds and thousands of people without them. So I just want to give them a big shout out. And I've got a few other messages for you. Yeah. Awesome. There are a few other people I want to thank for putting on this event and making it possible. I mean, we've got the biggest venue in Morelia. Isn't that's such a great feeling that we're going above, we're expanding, we're co-creating. And so these sponsors really help make that happen. So I want to shout out one company called Presearch, our friend Colin Pape and past TGR speaker, who's making a decentralized search engine. And this is going to be really cool because he's making it so anyone can volunteer and you can pass your searches through them. So if you're tired of getting spied on by Google, by Microsoft, by Bing, all those cats, use Presearch. It's the decentralized search engine. You can even earn some moolah while you search. And yep, of course, that's all the shout outs I want to give. We're going to pass it off to John Bush in Texas. Can we get him on stage? Let's go.
Check, check, check. Rebecca C., will you pull the PIP just for a second? How is everybody today?
Hey, John,
All right.
you're looking small on there.
Give it up for peace and freedom.
Give it up.
Okay, there we go. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramiro. Give it up for Ramiro Romani, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Man, this is awesome. I don't think everybody knows what goes on behind the scenes, but it's been quite the challenge. But as Thomas Paine said, the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. That which we obtain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly. So we do this for a reason. It's because it makes an impact in our world. And what we're trying to do is connect with each and every one of you to make an impact in your world. Because when we change our lives internally, and then when we're activists, meaning we're actively working to change the world for the better, it has ripple effects that expand beyond our own lives. And as Derek said, what we are attempting to do is no small feat. We're essentially trying to liberate humanity. Give it up for that mission, right? Now, of course, not everybody wants to go along with us on that journey. Some people love their peaceful servitude, but I know this crowd is the type that gets great pleasure, joy, and fulfillment out of the animated contest for freedom. So let us carry that message forward. We're in it for ourselves. I'm gonna be honest, right? Like, I want to improve my life. I want to have a wonderful experience for my children. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is set future generations up so they don't have to struggle as we do. And we're going to talk, I'm not going to get into this stuff. Today is Health Day, right? Now, health is critically important. And honestly, earlier I said, I want you guys to identify areas where you have some weaknesses. Maybe you're strong on this permaculture, right? You got the whole garden going, but maybe you're weak when it comes to the health. Although more often than not, those two are completely tied together. Well, me, honestly, the health thing is one of my shortcomings. And oftentimes I'm a little bit too much of a workaholic. I put being at the office in front of a computer screen ahead of going to the gym like old Derek Bros. But I'm listening too when I'm not putting fires out backstage. So I want to present our next speaker because he has spent a considerable amount of time going through the anthropological records and studying what he identifies as the proper human diet. He's an MD, a genuine doctor, but he's not one of those snake oil salesmen or pharmaceutical pill pushers. No, he's a good man. And I like to call him, after this guy, Dan Kennedy, this marketing guy that I learned, he's the professor of harsh realities. Well, Dr. Barry's one too. He's a straight shooter. He's a Southern guy, and he has a really powerful message when it comes to how important our diet is in our health. So without further ado, let's bring up Dr. Ken Berry, ladies and gentlemen. It's mic on. One sec there, Dr. Berry.
Hey, Texas, we can't hear you.
How's that? Yep. Okay. So during that time, in believing the classic paradigm of allopathic medicine, I became severely obese, pre-diabetic, had about 20 other medical complaints. And I'm a Southern boy. People say I have an accent, but I think that's bullshit. I don't think I do. And so in the South, common sense is honored above just about all things. And so you would never take your car to a mechanic who's got a bunch of junk cars in his front yard that won't start. And you wouldn't go to a hairdresser whose hairstyle is janky. You'd be like, no, right? And so also you shouldn't go and take health and nutrition advice from a fat, pre-diabetic, miserable doctor. And so this was very incongruous to me. And I said, I got to fix me, because in the South, I would be like, look, dude, you need to lose some weight, okay? And so women already know this eye thing, but men don't get it as often. And so when I would say that, their eyes would go from eye contact down to my belly for like 1/10 of a second, and then back up, and they'd be like, okay, doc, I got you. What therapeutic effect was I having? None, right? So I had to fix me. And on that journey, classically trained in medicine, so I got that, a tiny bit of training in nutrition, not much, as most doctors don't have much. And so I just dove headfirst into the nutrition literature, and I found the medical literature and the nutrition literature lacking. And so I started to look at archaeology, because that should be important, right? What did people eat 500 years ago? What did people even eat 100 years ago, when literally only one person out of 1,000 was severely obese? That should be important, right? Well, and then that led me to anthropology and paleoanthropology, because if it's important what they ate 1,000 years ago, shouldn't it be important what they ate 10,000, 20, 50, 100,000? All that should be very, very important. But guess doctors get very little training in nutrition. Guess how much training they get in anthropology, paleoanthropology? None. And so that's part of what's wrong with doctors, is they're essentially trained to be algorithm monkeys. If this, then write this. If this, then prescribe this. And so they're so busy doing that repetitive thing that they don't have time to step back and go, wait a minute. Human beings as a species have been on this planet for 300,000 years. All that time probably is important. That should matter. Okay, so all those years of research and looking at research brought me to what I now call a proper human diet. And I don't think I've got it 100% correct. I think we're all rediscovering a proper human diet. It's all a journey for all of us, and it may not be the same for each of us. That's why the proper human diet has a spectrum. But keep in mind that all of us, if you find the person in this room that looks the least like you, size, shape, skin tone, all of it, their DNA is 99.99% exactly the same as yours. No matter where you're from in the world, we went through a bottleneck multiple times actually, but one big one a few 100,000 years ago. We're all literally the same family, regardless of skin color or anything else. And I think that's very important to realize. So there might be a degree of diversity in what you can and should, but we're all pretty much the same. So now, earlier somebody talked about that there may be another meeting going on somewhere in the world. And so I think it's very important to look at what diet does that crowd, what are they recommending to you? And everybody knows about the bugs, right? But when you really dig in and say, okay, what diet do they really want us to eat on a daily basis? What diet is it? Big meat? No. Oh, fake meat. Yeah. So plant-based meat, they want you to eat lots of grains, right? They want you to eat beans and rice. And so I'm sure we have some vegans or vegetarians in the room. So I promise you, everything I'm about to say is coming from love and respect, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you afterwards. I'm not a dictator. I'm just a dude that got really interested in this topic, okay? So when we start looking at archaeology, well, first let me ask you a question. How many in this room your goal is to be resilient or anti-fragile? Raise your hand. Self-sufficient. Okay, good. Now, let's do an exercise. I want everybody in the room to raise your hand. Everybody. Come on, you two, come on. Okay, now, I want you to put your hand down if either you or someone in your immediate family has type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. Put your hand down. Okay, if you or someone in your family has hypertension, put your hand down, high blood pressure. Okay, if someone in your family has fatty liver or NAFLD, put your hand down. If someone has metabolic syndrome, you or your family, put your hand down. If either you or somebody in your family is either obese or severely obese, put your hand down. Okay? Now, those are the people that might be resilient or anti-fragile should things come to the possible worst case scenario that they could come to. Okay, hands down. Thank you. So with that in mind, with that picture, when you look at archaeology and anthropology, you see that slaves and prisoners were fed a specific diet. And the elite, the ruling class, whatever title they carried at that time, they ate meat and eggs. Okay, now for some of you guys, this may be a little uncomfortable to hear, but the science is pretty darn clear on this, okay? And if you go back in time, even over 1 million years, we're able to look with bones and teeth at something called stable isotope analysis. And we can tell that pretty much every human that lived on the face of the planet before 15,000 years ago were super carnivores. And the definition of that is that at least 70% of their diet came from meat. That used to be, before 15,000 years ago, 12 to 15, and if any of you guys study history and science and geology, you'll know that 12,000 year, that's an important part of history, right? Some things happened there that were very, very important. But before that, we were just meat eaters. And we would definitely eat veg and grains and all that stuff if we were starving. And so what I want to introduce to you is a paradigm that there is such a thing as an optimal human diet. But there's also another diet that you can eat to not starve to death. So if you were a ruler and you had some slaves, what would you feed them? You would feed them a diet that helped them not starve to death, that kept their belly full so they wouldn't revolt, right? And that kept them adequately happy and adequately able to work. But it would also be what? The cheapest shit you could find so they didn't die, right? They didn't get the meat. They didn't get the eggs. They got the beans and rice. And so I want you to understand that human diets, there's a spectrum. There's an optimal diet that humans have known about for a long damn time. But then there's multiple gradations of that diet, all the way over to a slave or a prisoner diet. And so all you guys said you wanted to be this. You want to be resilient, anti-fragile. And so you should probably mimic the diet that literally made us what we are as a species. The diet that brought us is probably the diet you should focus on. Okay? So what's the diet that Eat Lancet? That's a big organization, the Lancet Medical Journal, and then EAT is a huge, intimately linked to Davos. The diet that they say to eat, that they say it's healthy, is a diet that's a plant-based diet with maybe 20 grams of meat a day and a tenth of an egg. That's the diet that if they had their choice, if they could be a dictatorship, that's the diet you would eat every day, and you'd have no choice. Now, obviously, they're doing that because they have our health in mind. Right? And so for those of you who currently follow a plant-based or vegan or vegetarian eating pattern, think about that for a minute. You're eating the diet that they recommend. You're eating the diet that they would, if they had their way, they would force on all of us. That's got to feel uncomfortable. Okay? So there's this spectrum. And I want to tell you, before we're over, I want to tell you what labs you can ask your doctor to check so that you know where you fall on this. Because if you have any of those conditions that I spoke about earlier, you have to take medication for any of those, you're not resilient. You're not anti-fragile. You're at the behest of your doctor and your pharmacy. Okay? But that's the bad news. Now, the good news is that those conditions that I mentioned earlier are completely reversible. We've helped tens of thousands of people reverse type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, hyperinsulinemia. That's a very important word. Write that down if you're taking notes. Hyperinsulinemia. We've helped people reverse PCOS, greatly improve their acne, lower their blood pressure back to normal or close to normal. All of these conditions are caused by the modern diet and are in fact worsened by the diet that our dear leaders would love to impose on us. That should make you uncomfortable. And that's why I started out as a doctor and thought that my prescription pad was the most important thing. The most important tool I had to help people was my prescription pad. And then the more I tried to fix myself, the more I realized, dude, that prescription pad, that's useful about 1% of the time. 99% of the time, you need to spend every minute you can with the patient talking about their diets and easy, simple ways that they can change and improve their diet. That's the most important thing. And then when I started to dig into the anthropology and paleoanthropology, it became obvious because in the paleoanthropology community of PhDs, did you know, because it's not mainstream, it's just considered settled. There's no argument in that community that humans were super carnivores before 15,000 years ago if they had a choice. Now, if they were starving to death, and if things get so bad in this country that we're starving to death at some point, then I highly encourage you to eat all the rice and beans you can get your hands on, because they will keep you from starving to death. But if what you're trying to do is optimize your health, then you need to focus and make the central part of your diet meat and eggs. Okay, they are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And once you look at kale or blueberries or Aussie berries or whatever that you currently believe is a superfood, put the nutrition of that against the nutrition of 2 ounces of beef liver. And you'll be like, you'll walk away and hang your head in shame that you used to believe that was a superfood. Okay? Take a pastured egg yolk and look at the nutrition, the vitamins, the minerals, the fatty acids, and compare that. What's your favorite superfood? Say Bacon, hell yes. Don't come at me and say bacon is hedonistic or just for pleasure or, oh no, bacon, that'll kill you, colon cancer, heart attack. None of that's true, okay? A properly raised pig, the bacon from that pig and all the other parts are nutritionally complete superfoods. I have been and I don't advocate the carnivore diet for every person. I don't think it's necessary for everybody. But if you fatten easily, if you develop type 2 diabetes easily, then you need to eat a very, very low carbohydrate diet. So that brings us to what are the kind of the foundational principles of a proper human diet? Number one, it's low carb. Human beings are low carbohydrate mammals. You can't even argue that, okay? So the spectrum is 100 total grams of carbohydrates a day, not net grams. That's how the people who try to sell you stuff, that's how they trick you. All the way down to as close to 0 grams of carbs as you can get. So 100 total grams is low carb. Lower than that's keto. Lower than that's ketovore. Lower than that, as close to 0 as you can get. What's that diet called? Carnivore. That's a carnivore diet, yeah. And for people like me who fatten easily, get diabetes easily, get inflamed easily, a carnivore diet is the lowest carbohydrate, most uninflammatory diet on the planet. And I'm sorry, vegan friends, I'm happy to get with you later. I know, I see you, I love you, but we'll talk. If you want to talk, come talk. I can prove every single thing I'm saying. I'll give you 50 research papers. Now, so most of the people in America are not slaves and prisoners. Currently, they're serfs, aren't they? They work for the man. Yeah, you make just enough to pay the bills, got a little left over, but that's not really where we want to be. And most of those people, whether they know it or not, are eating a plant-based diet. You know the standard American diet, you've heard of that? That's 80 to 85% plant-based already. So wait a minute. If a plant-based diet gives you good health, shouldn't Americans be some of the healthiest people on the planet? And I know it's highly processed. You're right, it is. But it's still plant-based. And so if I took a pound of gold and I ground it up and highly processed that gold into gold powder and made a muffin with it, wouldn't that muffin still contain gold? No matter how much you grind it up, it's still gold. I would take that muffin. I wouldn't eat it, but I would take it and sell it, right? And so if you take a bunch of plants and you process the hell out of them and make a muffin, that's plant-based? That's plants. What magic happens? Because you can take meat and you can grind it up into the smallest pieces you possibly can and make a meat muffin. It's still very nutrient dense, very uninflammatory, very good for you. So what magic happens when you process plants? It makes them unhealthy. But in their whole state, they're healthy. But that doesn't work for gold or meat. I don't understand what magic happens in the factory. Think about all these things. And I'm not trying to convince you today, but I am trying to make you go, that's weird. I haven't thought of it that way. That's my goal, especially for my friend here. So the majority of people are eating an adequate diet. They don't develop overt vitamin and mineral deficiencies, right? They may be deficient in many minerals and vitamins, but they don't develop symptoms typically if they're eating a varied diet. But here's the problem. There are over 100,000 people on the planet right now eating a meat and egg diet. That's it. There's people here. They've been doing this for years. They haven't developed scurvy. When they get their vitamins and minerals checked, they're all right in the normal range, especially if they add 2 ounces of liver a week. They literally have no deficiencies in vitamins or minerals. They've got all the fatty acids they need. They actually have a better fatty acid profile. When you check, their omega-3s are sky high and their omega-6s are quite low. Also, when you check their CRP and their ESR and other markers of inflammation, they're normal virtually every time, unless they just fell and broke an ankle or something, then it'll be elevated. But if they're not injured, their inflammatory markers are normal. And then we come to poop. We've always got to talk about poop. How do you poop with no fiber? Well, so if meat is in fact the most nutrient-dense food on the planet, and eggs, then should you make a lot of poop on a carnivore diet, or should you make actually far less poop? Right? because you're able to use and absorb every single bit of that. And so you'll see plant-based people bragging about their 3 ginormous stinky poops a day. And I just don't feel like that would have been evolutionarily protective back in the day. If the predators could smell your shit 1.5 miles away, seems like that would be not advantageous. And so nobody on a carnivore diet has any problem with pooping. It works perfectly fine. Actually, people with irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease, their symptoms typically go completely away when they're on a meat-only diet. Now, wait a minute. What? I thought meat was inflammatory, caused bowel cancer, caused all these things because the World Health Organization said that. Oh, wait a minute. Aren't they real? They're good buddies with the Davos crowd, aren't they? Oh, shit. Huh. Okay, all right. Well, we're not going to get into conspiracies here. So back when I was eating a plant-based diet, I was very, very metabolically sick. And now all my markers are perfect, and I feel better at 54 than I felt at 34. And so for me, that's pretty strong proof for me personally. But I don't expect you to blindly believe that. What I would encourage you to do is check out some of my YouTube videos on not just carnivore, because I'm a proper human diet guy, okay? For some of you, staying under 100 total grams of carbs a day and filling up the rest of your plate with meat and eggs, that may be all you need to fix every metabolic problem you've got. Because if you have metabolic disease, you are not resilient. You are the person in the tribe that will get left behind or eaten if you die prematurely, because in the anthropology literature, cannibalism was very common when people were starving. If you're forced with rice and beans or Frank is meat, so at some point you got to have nutrition. Okay, so rather than you blindly believing what the dear leaders are trying to force down our throats, that this diet is in some way nutritionally complete, that this diet in some way gives you optimal health, I just want you to consider that perhaps the reason that they're recommending this diet is not because they want you to be optimally healthy. Maybe there's another reason that they're interested in you eating that way. Also, on a plant-based diet, tons of research shows that you have lower testosterone. Eating a meat-heavy diet, either meat-heavy keto, ketovore, or carnivore, testosterone invariably goes up in men and women. And women with PCOS, don't worry about this because that diet's also going to fix your hyperinsulinemia, which is the reason you may have falsely high DHEA and testosterone to begin with. Okay? Insulin is the hormone that makes you store fat. If your insulin level is low enough, it becomes virtually impossible to store fat. And that's why our ancestors, who were always in danger of starving to death, in the late summer and the fall, when the fruit got ripe, what did they do to it? They ate it all. When they found a honey tree, what did they do? They wore it out. And they laid around in a sugar coma for 2 days. But that raised their insulin enough that they were able to store that sugar as fat. 5, 10, 15 pounds of fat back then was a blessing. That was not a curse back then like it is now with the McWindy Kings on every corner. They needed that fat to survive the winter, to live through the famine. They needed that fat. But now we can have an ideal body weight and body fat percentage year-round because it's never really winter, even if you live in Michigan, right? It might be winter outside, but in your house and at the supermarket, it's not winter. You still got access to everything. So we don't have those winters and those famines like we used to, at least currently, we don't. But I would highly advise you, if you're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prescription medications, to look at your diet. And as you move towards a proper human diet, you're going to be able to decrease, if not stop, 1 or more of those medications. Because when you're tied to the pharmacy, you're not resilient. You're not anti-fragile. If the trucks don't run one time, you're screwed. But not only are you screwed, who else is screwed? Your family, your people, whoever you're with, they're screwed too because you didn't take your health seriously. And you didn't say, okay, I get it. You know, this is very popular and they're promoting this, but what should humans really eat? What's the most nutrient dense? What's the most uninflammatory? Should I really be eating a plant-based diet that's got 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates a day? If I'm obese, if I'm pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic, fatty liver, hypertension, PCOS, should I? Is that really a proper human diet for me? So I've got a little YouTube channel that I've got over 700 videos about low carb, about keto, about ketovore, and about carnivore. Somewhere on that spectrum is the proper human diet for you. Okay, I don't know where that is, and you won't know. But you can experiment. You can try each one of them for 90 days, and then you're going to go see your doctor, and you're going to get an A1C, a fasting insulin, and this is the test that the plant-based people really don't want you to get checked because you're going to be hyperinsulinemic if you're eating too many carbohydrates for you personally. And I've had more slap fights on Twitter about this. Plant-based cardiologists are like, checking a fasting insulin is stupid. And I'm like, yeah, for your paradigm it is. Yeah, you're right, because if people ate a diet that gave them a normal fasting insulin, which is under 10, they wouldn't need a cardiologist. And they also would no longer believe in a plant-based diet because it's impossible, especially as a vegan, to get the nutrition you need by eating under 100 total grams of carbs a day. It's impossible. And I would love it if there were a vegan option, but there's just not. If you're vegetarian and you eat plenty of seafood and eggs, crustaceans, mollusks, you can get all the nutrition you need, but you may still be eating too many carbohydrates. And your Beltline and these tests are going to tell you. Another test you can get is a C-peptide. It's hard to write like this. Also, get them to check your triglycerides. If your triglycerides are high, you're eating too many carbohydrates, 100%. You cannot eat any amount of saturated fat, of animal fat, to make your triglycerides go up. If you get a fasting triglyceride level and it's above 150, you're eating too many carbs for you. So when you have this set of tests, and also, let your doctor check any other tests they want to check, but when you have those four, you know for a fact, am I eating too many carbohydrates for me personally? All right? So if you're looking for information, check out my YouTube channel. If you're looking for loving support, check out my Facebook or my Instagram. If you're looking to get into a slap fight, see me over on Twitter. All right? Because I'm everywhere people are, because that's where people are that need help. And that's what I do because I'm a doctor. I took an oath, and I also have a calling to help people realize their best possible health. And this is the way I found to do it. Thank you very much.
All right, give it up, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Ken Berry, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! All right, thanks, Dr. Ken. Okay, before we send it back over to Mexico for Derek and Ramiro to introduce our next speaker, so he's obviously a carnivore guy, right? Derek's a vegan guy. We have some vegan presenters. We're presenting a wide, diverse range of ideas. That's really what it's all about when it comes to spirituality as well. So I think it's very healthy for us to have these conversations. And because I know we're in a mature audience, we can have these tough conversations and let us come to the table with an open mind and be ready for our beliefs to be challenged. All right, without further ado, Derek Bros in Mexico.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for that. And yeah, just to second what John said, even when us as organizers totally agree with the speakers, we still welcome them. So totally agree and disagree. We have differences of opinions, but this is a big community. So with that in mind, we want to welcome our next speakers, who I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. They're doing some really important work in the areas of health. specifically mental health. I'd say, well, physical, spiritual, all of it. So please give a big round of applause to Danny and Vanessa Panzella Veles. Come on, make some noise for them. Greater Reset 4 co-creation.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. What a beautiful crowd. I'm Danny Panzella Velez, and this is my wife.
Vanessa Velez Panzella.
I just want to take a moment and just sink into the gratitude that I have for this community. I've been friends with Derek and John for many years, and we've like been friends and kind of developing a lot of these ideas and learning and growing as people. And it is a beautiful thing after all these years to see what we've been dreaming of and what we've been working towards, manifesting in reality. The reality of you, this whole community. So I am in so much gratitude. I am so proud of John and Derek and Ramiro for all of their hard work, all of the volunteers. I'm grateful for all of you. And I'm grateful for this community for showing up to do this hard work. So thank you, all of you, for being here. Really, from the bottom of our hearts. We are just, I've already cried 3 times this morning. And I know John's like, he's running a pool because he likes to make fun of how much I cry. And today the title of our talk is Embodying Sovereignty Through Psychedelic Healing. And I think that's one of the side effects of psychedelic healing is that you come into this place of being in such deep gratitude for everything. I'm so grateful for my whole life. And when I started this journey, becoming an activist, when I woke up from the Matrix, I was angry. I was angry that I had lived a lie for my whole life, right? That I had believed these lies, that the New World Order or the Great Reset rather, was telling us, the programming, the Matrix, whatever you want to refer to it as. So when I woke up and realized 9/11 was an inside job, that was the thing that woke me up. I was angry. And immediately, because of my personality, I had to take action. So I became an activist, right? I was a member of We Are Change New York City. I was handing out DVDs of Loose Change and other documentaries to people that were coming, to tourists and whatever. But I was in this vibration of anger because I was so upset about the state of the world. And for many years, that anger really consumed me. And so, we would be doing the activism and trying to wake people up. And then after we'd do an event, I'd go and I'd drink myself into a stupor to medicate the pain that I was feeling. And, I think a lot of the anger, the source of anger is really fear of what they're going to do to me, fear of the freedoms they're going to steal from me, fear of how my life is going to be affected by the Great Reset and tyranny in general, right? And so I would come home and I would take out that anger on my wife. And not necessarily in an abusive way, but just in a way that, although there certainly was. I mean, we're very open about our toxic past on our podcast, but it doesn't always have to come out as abuse. Sometimes it just comes out as being angry and miserable all the time. And we got to a place in our relationship where the toxicity got so bad, we were going to have to separate and go our separate ways or do something to heal. And at that time, somebody, a very good friend of ours who's also in the Liberty community, she recommended we try mushrooms. And Vanessa and I sat in our bedroom for the first time and took a hero's dose of mushrooms. And I had the most transformative experience of my life. And I've done a lot of psychedelics since then. And that first ceremony, and for us, it was a ceremony. In that first ceremony, it changed everything for me. I thought I was awake. I wasn't awake. I was aware. I was aware of some tyranny, but I wasn't really fully awake yet. And that ceremony just changed the course of our lives. It changed everything. Thank you. So I'm going to let my wife speak now.
Yeah, that was a huge turning point in our relationship. Like Danny said, we were kind of going through life in this place of being aware of what was happening in the world, and allowing all of that anger to consume us. Like Danny said, he had kind of had this addiction to suffering. I used to make a joke that he had a limited amount of time of joy that he was allowing himself in the day. And sometimes when he would laugh a lot, I would say, stop, you're going to run into your laughing time for tomorrow, and tomorrow you're going to be really miserable. Because he didn't want to watch anything fun on TV. He didn't want to watch a movie, because we needed to watch documentaries and get informed about how our freedoms were being taken away every single day of every single moment. And that created a dynamic where he wasn't always present in our relationship. It made it difficult for him to empathize, because other people needed empathy. Because other people needed empathy. The world needed empathy. Sorry, I didn't realize. And so it created this dynamic where it was very difficult for us to have a true vulnerable conversation with each other. And at that point, it didn't matter what was happening in the outside world. We were already oppressed in our own home. We were creating the oppression for each other. We couldn't empathize. We couldn't be vulnerable with each other. We didn't have patience for each other. And it was like our inner children were at war with each other constantly. There was a war in our own home. And so, like Danny said, that first mushroom ceremony really allowed us to notice it. It was like the veil was lifted. The same way we want to wake everybody up in the world and to what's going on out there, what the World Economic Forum is doing, what the powers that want to be are doing, where there's a veil that isn't being lifted within our own homes, within our own consciousness. We're not aware of the times that we're being tyrants to ourselves in the way that we speak to ourselves, in the way that we speak negatively anytime we make a mistake, anytime we're afraid of making a move because we have these limiting beliefs. And when you're not aware of that, you're going out into the world projecting things onto other people. And how can we wake up the world when we don't have the empathy to hold space for another person who isn't quite there yet? So like Danny said, many years ago, when we first met, he was out handing out DVDs about 9/11. And we like to tell the story of the fact that that was the very first thing Danny ever said to me when we met. We were at a Halloween party having nothing to do with activism, just a random real estate Halloween party. And Danny, dressed as Captain America, walked over to me with a loose change DVD and said, "Hey, did you know 9/11 was an inside job?" And it was 2009, so I was very confused, and I was like, doesn't everybody?
That was the first time anyone ever responded to me that way. So now we say, you had me at 9/11 was an inside job.
Very clearly. So we had that foundation. We had the same beliefs. We knew we had to do something. We knew we had to create change somehow. But we were trying to change the world out there without changing first what was going on inside. And, you know, we live in New York City, and a lot of times when people hear that we live in New York City, they're like, oh my God, how do you live in New York City? And we live a very free life in New York City. We live a very happy life in New York City because we have done a lot of the work to decentralize our thoughts, to stop allowing the people that are out there trying to control us in some way or another, control our thoughts, our spirits, our minds, our way of life. We don't eat, live, and breathe the World Economic Forum. We live a life of joy, of peace, and every day these issues, whatever issues come up, because we're in a relationship, of course issues are going to come up. Those issues become challenges and opportunities. Last year we talked about the fact that living in New York City allowed us to recognize the areas where we weren't fully sovereign. Anytime something comes up that we're like, oh, that's an area of opportunity for us. This is what we need to look at. It's the same way with our relationship. Anytime we're triggered by something, yes, initially we have the trigger. Yesterday we were on the flight to Mexico, and Danny was highly triggered in that moment. And it was one of those moments where he had nowhere to run because we were stuck on a plane.
And I wanted to run.
And he wanted to run, and we worked through that. We have developed tools where we're able to see these moments of trigger as opportunities for us to go deeper into ourselves, into our subconscious. What's there? What's underneath the surface? What's being triggered that I haven't looked at? And that's what our triggers are. They're signals that something isn't quite right, that there's a place where we're not free.
Yeah, so many places we could go from here. We definitely are going to get deeper into the psychedelics. There is a Chinese proverb that says, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And I really feel that to be the warrior, for us to embody our inner warriors, we have to be whole within ourselves. It's not just a matter of being trained in self-defense or having systems in place. All of that stuff is absolutely important. You know, having a community around us, building intentional community. All of those things are crucial and beautiful. But if we're not secure in our own sovereignty, in our hearts, then those systems can break down very quickly. We have been in this movement for a long time, and we've seen intentional communities formed and fall apart because the people in those communities were not healing, working on themselves. And I don't mean that in any way as a judgment, because I was in that place. So I fully understand being desperate to want to protect your freedom, but not quite understanding. And if you can't work out the conflicts within yourself, you end up, like Vanessa said, you end up projecting them onto other people, and it causes conflict. And then this is what causes the breakdown of the community and the breakdown of the other systems. So how do psychedelics help you on that path? From a physiological perspective, they help create objectivity. During a psychedelic experience, there is a disassociation. And sometimes in the world of psychiatry, disassociation is seen as a bad thing. But there is what I consider a healthy disassociation. You're able to step back and look at your own triggers, look at your life from an objective perspective, and see the areas of yourself that need healing. Another thing that many psychedelics do is turn down the fear center of your brain. So now you no longer fear the things that trigger you. So you can kind of look at it in a little bit more of a logical way and process it. It gives you, when the fear is turned down, you don't worry about protecting yourself. You can be truly vulnerable. And vulnerability is the essence of connection. I really believe it's the essence of love. So you can't truly love yourself until you're able to be vulnerable with yourself. And the psychedelic state, and this is not only achievable through plant medicines, or even there are pharmaceutical psychedelics that we appreciate. MDMA is a pharmaceutical, and I had a lot of resistance to it because of that, because of my resistance to the pharmaceutical industry. But MDMA really helped teach me, I say it helped teach me the vibration of empathy. It helped teach me how to get out of my own perspective and understand the perspective of others. And that was hugely helpful with dealing with statists, right? Sometimes it's hard as an anarchist who does not believe in any sort of hierarchical control structure to deal with my family. My dad's a statist, some of my family are, and but that has helped me become more empathetic towards them. And I tend to look at LSD and MDMA and some of the other pharmaceutical psychedelics as what is the vibration that those psychedelics embody, right? So it's not so much about how those substances are created, because ultimately it all comes from nature. LSD is synthesized from ergot, which is a fungus, right? It all comes from nature. MDMA, there are several plants actually that embody the same vibration as MDMA that MDMA is synthesized from. So I feel like I ran myself off course there for a second, sorry. Do you have anything that you want to go with? Oh, you know where I wanted to go with this? Traditional therapy. We were in traditional therapy. And this is why I feel like psychedelics are so powerful. They come from nature, mostly, and certainly eventually, right? We were in therapy for years, and we got nowhere because we weren't willing to be vulnerable, first and foremost with ourselves, and then with each other. Because if you can't love yourself, you can't truly, or you can only love others to the degree that you love yourself. Because the things you judge about yourself, you're going to judge those things in other people. I was especially hard on myself. So then when I started to wake up, and now all of a sudden I knew about tyranny, and I was very impatient with people who didn't understand tyranny. How didn't you understand? It was only a few months before that I didn't understand. So, but all of a sudden I was like, how could you still be a statist? MDMA taught me to have more patience with that, with myself, to forgive myself for being duped by the system, for being programmed by the matrix, right?
And also to recognize where those beliefs came from, because those beliefs don't just, yes, the programming has a lot to do with it, but also our internal beliefs. Who do we give our authority over to? From the moment that we're born, we hand over our authority. So once we start recognizing that we've been giving away our authority in our relationship, I had no boundaries. And if I have no boundaries, then I'm not sovereign. I'm making decisions based on what Danny is going to say or think, or potentially, shut me out of, right? If he's going to shut down, that's going to feel like rejection. So then I don't put up boundaries. I'm not in my sovereignty. I'm not in my power. If I'm not in my sovereignty, how can I ever claim to be a sovereign being? How can I ever think that I'm going to protect myself from the powers that be, right? So this really allowed us to recognize the areas where we were not in our true power and our true sovereignty. And when we started stepping into that power, stepping into our true beliefs, being vulnerable with each other. And that's the thing, right? There's a lot of fear about vulnerability being a weakness. But when you're vulnerable, when you're true, your truest authentic self, that is the most powerful you could ever be, because nobody can take that from you. And that's where our true power lies, in that vulnerability. So when we connect with other people, it's all out there. There's nobody that anybody can at this point can say about us that we haven't already told the world ourselves. We're pretty vocal and vulnerable with people as much as we can. And I think there's probably still more work to do. We're on that path constantly, being aware of where we're giving away our power by not being in our vulnerability, by not being in our authenticity. And this work, the psychedelics, the plant medicine, any type of psychedelic breath work is, provides that container. There's all sorts of forms of psychedelic. Birthing is psychedelic. Motherhood, fatherhood, sex is psychedelic. So when we create these containers of that psychedelic energy, the psychedelic element, it provides a container of safety for us to truly dive into the depths of who we are. And if we don't know ourselves, we can never truly be free of anybody else's power or attempt at power over us. We can't if we don't know who we are. And that's the power of, in my opinion, the power of psychedelics is teaching us to really tap into our true essence, who we are at our core. And once we know who we are at our core, nobody can ever take that from us. Nobody can ever stop you if you know who you truly are. You won't question yourself anymore. And the truth about that is also that we get to tap into our intuition. And a lot of us, we come to these events and we learn different ways, different modalities, and some of the confusion can lie in what's right for me, because not all of the solutions are right for everybody. We are not ready to move out of New York City at this moment. It's not an option for us. So we can't get stuck in this idea that we're powerless in this situation. If we are in our sovereignty, then this is an opportunity for us to find better ways to get creative about the solutions that we come up with, because we are stepping into that sovereignty, getting to know what our true desires are, where our intuition guides us. And I feel like that's the true power of these psychedelic medicines. Like I said, whether you are working with plant medicines or breath work or sex or any other form that allows you to truly tap into your authenticity.
Yes, and I want to go back for a moment to what Vanessa was saying about boundaries. The warrior has boundaries, but the warrior is also in the garden. The warrior has compassion as well. In our belief system, this is masculine is the boundaries, feminine is the compassion. And we all have masculine and feminine qualities within us. And one of the things that we have really, I feel we've been taught by psychedelics, especially the mushroom kingdom, is about balancing those qualities within us. Having compassion, being able to be loving towards other people, but that doesn't mean we allow them to overstep our boundaries. That's what I was doing in our relationship. I loved Vanessa, but I walked all over her boundaries, and she was not in a place where she could enforce her boundaries. So what would happen was things would build up. I'd cross her boundaries, and then she'd come to a breaking point. And now, when I overstep her boundaries unintentionally, she can communicate those boundaries to me, but with compassion. It doesn't have to turn into a fight. You stepped over my boundary. It can be like, honey, you're overstepping my boundary. Oh my God, baby, I'm sorry, that was unintentional, and we can talk through it. You can take that paradigm and apply it to every relationship you have. It's not about a romantic relationship necessarily. So you're having a conflict in your intentional community, you can be in that space of compassionately expressing your boundaries so that it doesn't turn into conflict, which may not be reconcilable. And we've seen, like I said, some of those communities fall apart because of that very thing. And so this is now my life's work, is balancing my own masculine and feminine. Every interaction that I have, every conversation that we may have this week with every one of you, and I hope to have conversations with all of you, because I feel like I have something to learn from every single one of you. We all have different experiences, and if we can learn from each other, this brings us not just closer in terms of being able to empathize and have understanding for each other, but I believe it gets us closer to unity consciousness. And that's where we find peace. The more of us doing this work, embodying inner peace, the world changes. That's what being the change means, in my opinion. That's what I feel like psychedelics has taught us.
It all starts within, and we hear that often. And I think a lot of the solutions that are being offered today are helping us achieve that balance within, whether it's permaculture, whether it's eating healthy, building cryptocurrency, being in control of our technology. All of that is extremely beneficial, and it all starts with us. We can't be out there yelling at everybody else to do the thing that we haven't done yet. And a lot of times we catch ourselves doing that, expecting things from other people that we're not ready yet to embody. So, yesterday in the trigger we were having, Danny was having an argument with somebody.
I was like that meme. I was triggered.
And at one point he said, I want her to admit that she's in her ego. And I said, okay, well, are you ready to admit that you're in your ego? Because clearly it must be easy to admit if you're expecting her to admit that she's in her ego. And it was like a light bulb went off. Not a very happy light bulb, but a light bulb nonetheless.
I was a little reticent to admit it, but yeah, she was right.
And I think that's the thing, right? We are expecting our family members, we're expecting people in our communities to understand something, to change their minds. And when we stop and look at how easy it is for us to change our minds, that's not always the case. If it's something that we don't agree with, we're not going to change our minds. When somebody gives us a list of facts and says, here's the information I have, here's the research, I've done, so now change your mind. It's not that easy, but we expect other people to do that. And when we start recognizing that there are areas of resistance within ourselves, then it's easier to hold space and have empathy for the areas of resistance within others. And then we can build those connections. We've met a lot of people in our neighborhood in progressive Brooklyn, and they're not always, they're not always ready to hear what we have to say.
Very rarely are they ready to hear.
But we've also made connections with people by being vulnerable, by being authentic, by opening up to our belief systems, talking about psychedelics. And honestly, we've met people that after a few conversations are crying, telling us the things that they're going through. And it's beautiful. It creates this energy, this community. We have, right now, we traveled here from New York, and we have 3 different people taking care of our dog in our community. And not all of them have the same beliefs, but we're able to start bridging those gaps and building those communities. And we can start allowing, if we're angry activists, who are we going to convince to come over to our side? That's not fun. Why would they want to be angry, right? But if we're in this place of joy, if we're really enjoying our lives, and we are authentically, truly enjoying our lives. We're in Morelia right now with hundreds of people, thousands of people watching online, but hundreds of people in person here and in Texas, and getting to see this community grow, getting to hear all of this amazing information. I mean, that's beautiful. That's the life that we have chosen at this point. And that's the thing, it's a choice. And sometimes we forget that we have a choice because we're still stuck in those limiting beliefs and these paradigms of oppression. And we don't have to be there.
Yeah. So I want to say that psychedelics is not all fun and games. The experience,
as some of you seem to know.
the experiences can be difficult. In that first transformative journey that I went on, I hesitate to say this because I don't want anybody to be afraid to venture in this world if you have not been there yet. But I had a very difficult trip, we'll call it that. I don't believe there's any such thing as a bad trip, because every trip has something to teach you, even if it's hard, right? Have the courage, be the warrior, and have the courage to be willing to face those hard things. But I've also never had a trip that started out as a bad trip that didn't end in beauty, joy, gratitude. I think if we surrender to the experience itself, I think most of the bad trips we create because we resist the messages we're getting from the medicine. And that's what creates that feeling of, oh God, it's the resistance itself. And once you release that resistance, then there's the joy and the beauty. And you can actually see the beauty in even the things that you did wrong, right? That first trip where we were in such a toxic place. Look, I'll just say it. We've detailed this on our podcast. I was a narcissist. I was a cheater. I had a sex addiction. I had not a great relationship with my mom growing up. I grew up most of my life believing my mother didn't actually love me, that I was a burden, that she didn't want kids. And because of a few little things that happened when I was a child that my child's brain could not understand, I interpreted it in those ways. And out of that need for love, I started looking for love through sex with as many partners as I could rack up. That's how I determined, okay, I wasn't worthy of my mother's love, but if my body count can stack up, then I must be worthy. And this is the delusion that I lived in. And in that first ceremony, it was like nature, God, source, whatever you want to call it, the universe showed me. I, for the first time in my life, understood all of that in just a moment, it felt like. And that epiphany was huge and changed everything. But that was just the start. The epiphany is just the start. Because now you have to integrate that epiphany into your everyday life. It took us a long time after that for me to change my behaviors. There were times that I still, when I felt unworthy, if we maybe weren't having a great day, we were arguing about something, that I would feel tempted. I'd want to flirt with the girl at Starbucks that I was getting my coffee from, or have an interaction where I needed to get some kind of validation. And it took a long time for me to be able to recognize those behaviors and say, oh, that's the old me. I don't need to do that anymore. I can be vulnerable and go to Vanessa and say, hey, You know, today I felt like I wasn't as worthy, and I wanted to flirt with that girl at Starbucks because I didn't feel worthy. I needed some validation. And she can hold me, and she can express love to me and help me through that till I can get to the point where now I feel the validation from myself. I can self-source my validation and be like, I'm a child of the universe. I'm God in a human body, or I'm a child of God, depending on whatever your belief system is. I'm worthy just because I exist. And it's integrating those epiphanies into your everyday life. That's where the real healing happens. Because many people will have epiphanies on psychedelics and then never integrate them and forget. You can forget. So integration work, I'm being told to wrap up. Thank you. Yeah, I could go on all day. I mean, and please feel free to approach us, ask us any questions, or just share your experiences. We want to hear your experiences. We really do want to connect with you all. So I think if I had to sum it up in a closing statement, psychedelics helped me become truly a vulnerable person, able to receive and express love in a way, even to complete strangers. So come up and share some love with me. Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Awesome. Yes. Nope. Yeah, I just want to thank Danny and Vanessa. They were super, super gracious and loving and helping me through my past relationships. And yeah, they were really there and helped me get in touch with the emotion. So I just want to send them some personal thanks.
Excellent. Wow. I want to share some love for Danny and Vanessa too, because I've known Danny. You give it up for Danny and Vanessa, ladies and gentlemen. I actually met Danny the same year I met Derek Bros in 2011. So we've been pals for 11 years now. And the stuff that they just shared is really special because it's vulnerable. And I want to encourage people to become more vulnerable, because if you live your life in a shell, not only is it stressful, probably shaves years off of your life expectancy, but it really makes it a big challenge for you to connect with other human beings. And that's really what it's all about if we're going to improve this world. But first, you got to connect with yourself. And, you know, me and Danny go way back. And when he first met Vanessa, because they're real vulnerable, so I'm going to share this little bit about them. We were staying at his apartment in Brooklyn, and I was there with my ex-wife, and we were listening into a fight they were having. And I was thinking to myself, like, dang, if they fight like that when they have company, can you imagine how they fight when no one's around? So it's not an understatement for them to share the transformation that they've gone through in their relationship. And I feel really blessed to have a friend like that, the brotherhood that we share, and how he helps me to become more vulnerable and become a better partner for my wife and a better father for my kids. So I really appreciate Danny, and I'm grateful that he was here to share with us today. Give it up for Danny Vanessa, ladies and gentlemen. We got that thing going on here where it's like, woo. Anyway, okay, we are going to thank some of our sponsors. Look, this event is broadcast free to the entire world. We wouldn't be, give it up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And we wouldn't be able to do that were it not for the gracious support of a slew of freedom-minded businesses that have incredible products that are so in alignment with the message that we're promoting through the Greater Reset. One of those companies is called Texas Ready. They sell awesome non-GMO heirloom seeds, but on top of that, they do incredible workshops. So not only can you buy the seeds, but you can also get the knowledge needed in order to plant those seeds. Now, I got news for you. I know there's a lot of folks, maybe there's not as many. I just think of my old Alex Jones days when he's like, get the survival seed bank, you'll be set for life. And so I know there's some people watching this that are like, I got the survival seed bank up in my closet, so if crap hits the fan, I'm going to be okay. But it's actually pretty challenging to take something from seed to fruit. We used to have 120 chickens. I tell you what, it's a lot easier to raise chickens than it was to grow vegetables. Still to this day, I've never been able to produce an ear of corn. It's like a pollination thing or something. I don't know. I can grow some okra and tomatoes, though. But nonetheless, Texas Ready has incredible seeds. You can check them out at texasready.net, texasready.net. We are trying to create our own circular economy. That's a World Economic Forum buzzword. But it's basically like where we take business, money, resources, and it circulates within our freedom community. That's part of what we're doing with this counter economy we're going to talk more about on Friday. So any opportunity you have when you need or want something, I highly encourage you to first try to source it from another business within our community. And Texas Ready is most definitely part of our community, and they help to make this event possible. For our next sponsor, I'm going to bring in my good friend Ryan Maniti. Ryan Maniti, our latest hire at Live Free Academy. This guy's an incredible human being, and I'm really grateful to have him on board. He's the one that recruited Weston A. Price Foundation as a sponsor of this event. So I'm going to let him share a little bit about them.
Thank you, everybody. I just want to say thank you to Maureen and Kathy from Weston A. Price. They've been an absolute pleasure to work with. A little bit about Weston A. Price. If you're tired of fancy marketing campaigns and bright and beautiful colors on these cereal boxes, and you're tired of Die of the Week campaigns, go ahead and check out westonaprice.org so you can learn how to eat nose to tail, how to eat a more traditional diet, how to be more healthy. And if you're concerned about our milk and the state of the pasteurized milk and all of the BS that's going on with that, then you can check out realmilk.com and join Weston A. Price's campaign to get raw and healthy milk back in our supermarkets, and or at least, you know, we'll be able to buy it without being persecuted. So realmilk.com and westonaprice.org. Check them out.
Why don't you introduce our next presenter as well, our next sponsor?
Our next sponsor is a very good friend of mine. We've developed a great relationship over the last couple of months. He also sponsored our town hall summit with Texas Slim. He'll be a speaker tomorrow. Definitely listen to what he has to say. But Farrow, Charles Mayfield, they're doing incredible work, and they've got an amazing product. So give it up for Charles.
Thank you. This is fun. So your skin is your largest organ. I'll keep it brief. We've got a booth out here. I'd love and welcome any and all of you to come by. We say it at Farrow, the lard works in mysterious ways. And it actually indeed does. I brought all of our products with me, but we've got sample sizes to sell here at the event, as well as some discount codes for everyone here. And also virtually, you can come by the booth, check in. We can chew the fat about the benefits of regenerative farming and lard and how it's good for our skin. So we're excited to be here. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary as a company. And what better way to do that than here in the freedom of this room. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Charles. That wasn't a COVID elbow bump, ladies and gentlemen. It was out of necessity. Okay, look, we're sending out emails to the Greater Reset list, supporting these sponsors, bringing them to your attention. And would you believe it? Somebody replied to one of these emails and was like, how dare you send me a promotional email to this list? Guys, I need you guys to all recognize, those of you on the stream, that this event would not be possible. We would not be able to reach as many people as we are reaching with this powerful message were it not for these generous companies. So they've shown us love. They're co-creating this event with us. So I highly encourage you to show them love and vote with your dollars with these companies. All right, let's take it back to Mexico, ladies and gentlemen.
What up, Mexico? Make some noise. Woo, woo, woo. All right, let's get some lights up on the podio. Okay, I've got a quick message before I announce the next speaker. So we have several hundred people watching online. So all right, it's day one. I want to draw your attention, if you're watching online, to all the share buttons at the bottom of the screen. Listen, I need you to shill freedom. I need you to shill the Greater Reset and click on some of those buttons and share those with your friends, because this is a movement. We are trying to spill outside of our own bubble. We've been separated for too long from the general populace. So if you have 3 or 4 friends, use the buttons at the bottom of the screen and share it on Facebook, share it on WhatsApp. It's all right if it's not private. Let's just get more people on the stream and watching. Thank you for that. I appreciate you doing that for us. And now let's bring on our next speaker. This is someone who's very special to me. And working in the tech field, it's easy to get disconnected from your emotions. You know, it can be a very stressful job on your psyche and your spirit. And so when I discovered HeartMath, I found really easy techniques to get back in touch with my emotions, back in touch with my heart. And honestly, as soon as you tap into that and you feel into the field and you follow some of these easy techniques, you begin to feel it right away. So without further ado, I want to bring on Howard on stage. Let's give a round of applause. Howard, how's your heart doing?
Hush through just fine, Romero. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all in this way, virtually, to be a part of the Great Resetting. It's an honor and a privilege, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to share some things with you that I hope you find interesting and helpful in your life. Now, our time together is going to be sort of brief, so let me just get right to the point. You know, it's a time in the history of our world when we are obviously experiencing unprecedented change, more change happening in less time than ever before in the history of humankind. That is presenting great opportunities and great growth, but also many, many challenges. In order to navigate those challenges and to take the advantage of the opportunity, we're going to have to come into new types of intelligence to do that. The same ways of thinking, the logical linear approaches to how we've been living our lives and how we've been trying to navigate and solve problems isn't going to work. It isn't working. It's already not working. This is something that's already happening. It's going to take a different type of intelligence, and my true belief, based on many, many years of work, is that it's the intelligence of the heart that's going to be essential and is essential in this process that we're all involved in. I'm not here to talk about myself today, but I will say this. An exploration of heart has been my life's work for now well over 40 years. And for the last 33, formally here at HeartMath as an executive vice president and author and that sort of a role. And over time, it's interesting, it's sort of counterintuitive. Things in ways become more simple rather than more complex. So I'll share very briefly a couple of simple statements with you that have come to me over these many years of exploration. The first is this, is that I believe the purpose of life is to love. Very simple statement. It's been talked about before, written about for thousands of years. For me, it's real. For me, it's very serious. At the end of the day, when this life is done, it's not going to be about how many books I sold, how many places I spoke, or any of that. It's going to be about how much I loved or how much I did not love. And within that, that to me is the real purpose of why we are all here, why each and every one of us is here on this planet. The second one I'll share is that I believe that the key to unfolding this next chapter in human evolution lies in learning how to get along with each other better. It's as simple as that, but hard to do. We have to learn to dissolve the differences and the separations and the biases and the judgments between ourselves, internally, individually in our relationships, certainly collectively in society, societal systems, governments, all of that. We have to learn to get along better. That cooperation is absolutely going to be essential as we go through these changing times. Let me give you a very brief personal example of that, a right now example. I'm broadcasting to you from my office in Northern California, Central California. I just got back here last night. I've been evacuated for the last 2 weeks. A series of very powerful storms starting in late December that went all the way through Monday came and hit this part of the world, creating tremendous disruption, floods, power outages, road closures, a lot of different things went down. And I just got back here to my office in my home last night. So as inconvenient as that has been, it's also been a time of growth, an opportunity for me to flex and to adapt and to show my care and compassion for others rather than concern for myself. It's also an interesting observation whenever there's a natural disaster to see people coming together, to see people helping one another, dissolving those differences in the name of trying to get through something that's bigger than all of that. And so you see the heart coming into play. You see the qualities of the heart being manifested at a time like that when there's a time of crisis. So it's always there. And our desire really at a deeper level to connect, to me, is always there. Now at HeartMath, we've done a lot of work now for over 30 years. We've developed a system of tools, techniques, technology, all underpinned with scientific research that we've deployed all around the world, touching the lives of many millions of people in meaningful ways. At the core of that, there is some science. I mentioned science just now, so let me explain what's going on with that. Everything we do here at HeartMath is underpinned with scientific research, with the staff of scientists that are with our nonprofit, the HeartMath Institute. And what they've been doing all this time is mapping out the communication pathways by which the physical heart communicates with the brain and the rest of the body, and showing that this communication from the heart is essential for things like higher brain function, good health. Many, many benefits are really associated with the communication coming from the physical heart. It's doing a lot more than pumping blood. Taken further, they've also been doing research around the heart's energetic field. Your physical heart produces a field of energy, a magnetic field that surrounds you in 360 degrees and radiates outside the body at least 3 feet or 1 meter for those of you that are listening in a part of the world that uses the metric system. They've been mapping out that field, understanding that it's imprinted with our emotions, that we are communicating our emotions through this field. They've also taken that further into research on understanding the energetic connections between all living systems, between us, between plants, between animals, between the physical planet itself, and beyond. And what this all leads up to is an understanding that heart connection is important. And that's what my talk's about. It's about heart connection. Heart connection is essential, first of all, for us to be operating at our very best. The previous speakers talked about that. They talked about compassion. They talked about love. They talked about their own transformational journey to arrive at a place where they could be better at what they did, better at the activism that they have a passion for. But it had a lot to do, when I'm interpreting what they said, with an unfoldment of the qualities of the heart. What I would say is that we have an intelligence that we are born with, that never really goes away. It gets sort of drowned out over time by the roar of ambition and survival, and we start living from the neck up, and we lose this connection, but it returns at times, just like what I mentioned a few minutes ago about the natural disaster here, seeing people's hearts open in the name of supporting and helping one another. So it's really always there. It just needs dusting off, and it needs to be brought to the forefront of how we live our lives today. Absolutely necessity. You'll hear a lot of great speakers at this event, and they're going to talk about a lot of things, including technology, food, diet, finance, ecology, lots of interesting subjects. Within all those subjects, I think an infusion of the qualities of the heart, more care, more kindness, more appreciation, more understanding, more compassion, less judgment, can benefit each and every one of those initiatives that you'll hear people talk about. I will use now technology as an example of that. We have amazing technology today already, amazing technology. I'm with you today, right now in this way, because of amazing technology. And as people who write about that have characterized where we are today, they say that we're at the end of the beginning, only at the end of the beginning, that lots of new technology is coming. It's on the way. It's going to be a different world through technology. Technology is very important. It has helped us. It will help us. It's not the total answer. And if we don't use technology properly, it's not as effective as it could be. And it even can be detrimental. And you've seen that. I know you've seen that. It's going to take more intuition to understand how to develop technologies, what technologies to develop. It's going to take another level of maturity, another level of heart-based consciousness to learn how to implement those technologies so they are applicable to each and every one of us in our modern lives, and how to use them in ways that aren't detrimental. That's going to take heart. So technology by itself, from a mind-based perspective, gets us to a certain place. It can't get us to the next place, I believe, unless we infuse it with more of what I'm talking about as heart intelligence. Heart intelligence is a high-speed intelligence. It is intuitive. It does access a field of information where we get information that is nonlinear, which is generically called intuition. It's through the heart that we access that type of intelligence. Heart intelligence is also the birthplace of the emotional qualities that are the most regenerative and beneficial to us. I've already used those words: appreciation, love, care, kindness, compassion, etc. They're born from the heart. They are birthed from the heart's intelligence. The heart's intelligence is also that place we do go to when we're looking for our own guidance and our own self-security. We go there often when times are tough. There have been times in my life when I've been in situations where there was no answer to the situation. There was no way I could see a way through it, no way I could figure it out. And in those times, what would happen always is I would dig a little deeper in myself. Many people do that. Many people pray, or they meditate, or they get in the car and drive off into the night, or they take a walk on the beach or a walk in the forest. They're looking for something, and they pull a little deeper. And when they do, they find the heart's intelligence. Because even in tough times, I've had thoughts change to where it would be like This is hard. I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but you know what? I've been through tough situations before, and I know I'm going to get through this one. That's the heart speaking. So it is really, truly the source of your own self-security. A simple way to put that is that I believe that our hearts are our own best friend, the most reliable guide that we have to navigating life and to making decisions, big and small. Now, I mentioned intuition several times, and intuition is extremely important right now. We are going to need more intuitive insight into seeing what to do about many of the situations that we face globally. Now, the heart's intelligence and intuition are already there. Each and every one of you has that inside. You've experienced it. You will experience it. It's right there for you. It's a secret hidden in plain view. An analogy I use sometime, I actually did a little piece on this in a cinematic learning experience that I produced called the Heart Math Experience, where I talked about the most important invention in the last 50 years. And sometimes I've asked people that in large audiences, and they will say things like, you know, the internet or television or whatever. But it's really the discovery of electricity. None of that other stuff would exist without electricity. Electricity changed the world, and it changed it really, really fast. I mean, really fast. Electricity has been there the whole time people have been here, but people couldn't see it. Or even when they saw it, they didn't know what to do with it. It required some intuitive insight into understanding what was right there all along that could change the world. We are at that place right now. There are solutions to the challenges that we face. We've got to learn to tune into those, to be able to see them. That is not going to happen just by thinking our way through it. It's going to happen when we bring the mind into alignment with the heart, open the door for more intuitive insight to come in. Then we begin to see the bigger picture around what we need to do on angles of view that will lead us to the solutions that we need to move this world into a new, different, and very better place. And I will say this, as I'm sort of jumping around right now just a little bit. Even with the problems we face today, my belief is we're on the right track. That everything is, in fact, moving in the right direction. We're going to see the world's problems clearly. We're going to see conflict. We're going to see challenges in so many different ways. And it can be disheartening when we see that. And we can begin to feel a little hopeless that we don't have control, that things are going the wrong direction. Some people believe that we are headed towards an apocalypse. I do not share that belief. I see a different trajectory. I see a trajectory that is making us grow, that's acting in a way that's giving us more maturity, that there are many, many millions of people around the world like you that care about things in a different way, that have already changed the way you approach life, that have already changed your belief systems, that are already doing things differently, and that are already contributing in ways to make this world a better place. And that momentum is building. So with the backdrop of what we see today, there's a larger momentum that is increasing moment to moment, day to day. And it's events like the Great Resetting and all the energy and time and work that's been put into this, bringing people together literally from all around the world. It's those type of actions that are in fact making a difference. And I believe that that difference is making a difference, that we are going in the right direction. So never lose hope and never lose your heart in the process of all that. So I've talked a lot about what heart intelligence is. I've shared a little bit about the science behind it all. But what I'd like to do now is I'd like us to have an experience of it, collective experience of it together. So I'm going to lead us all through a little simple exercise that will hopefully raise the vibration a little bit wherever you are, whether you're in Texas or you're in Mexico or whether you're watching the live stream. And let's create that heart connection right now. And then let's take that even a step further and use this collective experience that we're all having in a way to serve humanity, a service, not just the way we learn and grow, but to take our learning and growing and let's put it into practical application and use it to serve other people. So to do that, what I'd like to invite you to do is to, first of all, focus your attention right here in the area in the center of your chest. It's the area of the physical heart, just a general area right there. If you'd like, you can close your eyes while we do this. It's okay to keep them open as well. But just feel your energy going right down here to the area of the heart. If you'd like, you can put your hand there if that's helpful. Now, with your attention there, I want you to breathe naturally and normally in a rhythm that's comfortable for you. And as you breathe, I want you to imagine as if your breath is coming in through the area of the heart on the in-breath and back out through the area of the heart as you breathe out. And we'll do this together now for several breaths. This is called heart-focused breathing. Like you continue to breathe this way. Now, let's add another step. I'd like you to activate a heart-based regenerative quality. It could be feeling appreciation for the good things in your life, good things that you already have. It could be the love or the care that you have for someone or something in your life. It could be a person. It could be a place. It could be your pet. Whatever it is, just gently evoke a heart quality and then breathe it in and out through the area of the heart. As you're doing this, things are happening inside your body. Your nervous system is synchronizing. Hormones are being triggered and released into your body that regenerate you, like more oxytocin and more DHEA. The quality of the signals that run from your heart back to your brain and the rest of the body are improving and synchronizing, going into what's called a coherent state. And it's opening up your awareness to receive more intuitive information and intelligence. Now, from this place, let's individually and collectively use it to help others. What I'd like you to do is to gently radiate whatever you're feeling out from the heart. It doesn't have to be a forced feeling, more like the glow of a lantern. And just radiate that feeling outward from your heart into what I'll call the energetic field environment that you're in right now. It could be the room that you're in Mexico, or the room you're in Austin, or wherever you are in the world right now, and just radiate that heart feeling gently out from the heart into that energetic field environment. Now let's expand it greatly. Let's send this heart, and this collective heart that we have created together right now, to humanity itself, to all the people that are going through hardships, all the people that are struggling in so many different ways, all the people that are going through human suffering. And let's offer that right now as our gift from the Great Resetting to help all those people in need of so much in their life. Now let's end just feeling appreciation and gratitude for the gift of life itself, and to have the opportunity to be on this planet at this time at such an important juncture. Let's appreciate that opportunity, and just feel that appreciative glow inside your own heart. All right, if you've had your eyes closed, feel free to open them now. And I'd like you to appreciate yourself right now for whatever contribution you made to that experience. And never underestimate what happens when you do that. You know, how you can benefit not only yourself, but the lives of others. And when we do that together, we're really creating a collective field environment. And so I'm all about that. I'm all about understanding how these field environments work and how they relate to one another and what they can actually get accomplished. Because really, we are truly all in this together. You know, as I mentioned, science is just one part of it. Science is not the only thing. It's not the big deal, but it helps to confirm. I've always believed that when science proves something to be true, it increases the power of belief. Empirical understanding increases the belief in something. But I also believe that, you know, science can't explain everything, and that things are happening in nonlinear ways. But that what we did just now, by coming together that way, heart to heart really, and making that heart connection, and then putting it out to the world, can help to lift the spirits of others. People that we don't know, that we'll never see, that we'll never meet, that are going through whatever they're going right now, that we have just done a little service there to make their lives better in some way. So I want to thank you for that, and thank you for your contribution. Now, to manifest more of our heart's intelligence, again, can get simpler. And it starts with, you know, first of all, how we treat ourselves. You know, the speakers that were on before me were talking about going through some of that, going through their own healing process, going through getting to a place where they could feel more of their own self-love and their own compassion. And so it starts right with you and I, and moment to moment, day to day. You know, so self-compassion is very important. It's not self-centered to have compassion for yourself. So there are going to be times for each and every one of us when we don't meet our own expectations, when we don't feel like we're getting it, when we don't feel like we've behaved appropriately, when we don't feel like we've made the best choices or best decisions, you know, and we can be a little down on ourselves. We go into self-judgment. The antidote for that is self-compassion. And what I think is that, you know, in those times when you start having those thoughts, you need to go have another type of talk with yourself. You need to say, hey, you know, I'll say, hey, little dude, little Howard, you know, maybe it's not your best day, but you're trying. And you're a good man doing the very best you can in a challenging life and challenging world at times. So, you know, don't be as self-judgmental. You know, go to more of a self-compassionate place. That is very regenerative for you at the individual level. Actually, it's also a big form of service. It's helping to sort of crack the way through some of the density and some of the standard third-dimensional programming that people go through. You're making a contribution to help lift the spirits of others when you are, in fact, showing compassion for yourself. It also gets into other things like just being a little kinder to people. Just kinder. You don't have to walk around in this big loving place all the time trying to hug everybody. It just gets down to simple stuff. Are you being kind to other people? Are you showing them a little extra respect? Are you offering them maybe a little more compassion than you normally would? Have you made the interaction you had with that person, let's say in a store or at a restaurant or wherever you are, have you made that interaction a little better for that person by just being kinder? So it gets down to simple things like that. But with regular practice and regular consistency, what will happen is you will naturally become more in tune with your heart's intelligence. You will make that connection. And heart connection matters. Without heart connection, we're not going to move through these changes with as much poise and as much grace as we could, or as fast as we could to get to where we want to go. It's essential. It's the missing X factor. The lack of love in the world is obvious, and the need for more love in the world is a secret hidden in plain view. All of that starts with and comes from your heart and your heart's intelligence. So as you enjoy the rest of this conference, I'd like you to consider that. I'd like you to go back from time to time and make a connection with your own heart. Show a little extra kindness, a little extra care. If you begin to have a hard time with something, try to have that self-compassion. In doing so, you're not only going to have a great conference, but you're going to make that conference an even better conference. The vibration and consciousness of this conference will operate at a different level. And as it does, the learning will happen deeper, but also the services providing will have more impact and more effectiveness. All that can happen if you'll just return and touch base with your heart more often as you go through this deal. And then you can try that little exercise again. I'll give it to you again. It's just heart focus. Then you do your heart focused breathing. Then you activate a regenerative, uplifting feeling, a heart-related feeling, and then gently radiate it. You can do that anytime, anywhere in your life, and I would suggest or encourage you to do it while you're experiencing the great resetting, and then certainly there afterwards. There's a world of heart math that I've only touched on some today. For more information about that, and this is not that I'm trying to sell anything to anybody, but if you want to learn more, there's a lot you can learn and a lot that's free. You go to heartmath.com, or you can go to our nonprofit site, heartmath.org. Ramiro mentioned coming in contact with HeartMath. He watched the HeartMath experience. He reached out to me after seeing that and seeing me in it and asked me to speak with him and to do a podcast that he did, and then he invited me to this event. I was unable to make it in person, but I'm here with you now. And so what I want you to know is this. I want you to know that you are a good person. You wouldn't be a part of something like this if you weren't. You are doing the very best you can, and often it's tough. I also want you to know that whatever you're doing in the world is probably helping a lot. I don't know you, I can't even see you, but my belief is you're probably doing something, whether it seems like a big deal to you or not, you're probably doing things in your life that are already making a contribution. And now, for just a brief moment, I will become a futurist. I'll go into the future, and I want to thank you for what you're going to do in the world, because it's people like you that represent the hope for the world and the future of this world. So with that said, my heart to you, big love to you. Have a great conference. Maybe I can be there in person next year, but all the very, very best. And please take care of yourself, and especially take care of each other.
All right. Give it up, give it up, give it up.
All right. Thank you so much, Howard. We appreciate you.
Thanks, my friend.
With that, we're going to conclude the morning session, everybody. We appreciate you being here. We're now going to break for lunch for about an hour and a half. We're going to resume at 2 p.m. sharp. We got Miriam Gomez, my lovely partner, will be speaking. We're going to be hearing from, I don't know if anybody came here for Del Bigtree, but he'll be speaking later on this afternoon. And a lot of other great speakers. So please come back here in about an hour and a half. Go outside, enjoy the sun. And if you're in Texas, take a break for a little bit. And if you're on the stream, we'll see you at 2 p.m. Central. Thank you guys so much.